I'm the closest thing to the real Jesus that they probably will ever see in person.
Jesus is angry. Well, God was angry at times, but it's a righteous anger.
He's been able to make sense of it as just being part of Christ's suffering.
The cameras didn't end the moment. They froze it. On a stone hillside in Matera, Italy, a crew trained to keep moving stood still, listening to a kind of silence that doesn't happen on sets. No shouted orders, no nervous laughs, just breath in cold air and a feeling like the ground itself was holding its voice. What you're about to hear isn't a sermon, and it isn't a hype reel. It's the story of why a single sequence shook a team of professionals and why that impact might reach you through a screen. Before we dive deeper, do me a quick favor. If you value storytelling that goes for truth over noise, tap like right now and drop a short comment with where you're watching from. It helps this kind of work reach people who are tired of the same old surface-level content. Back to that hill. The choice to film here wasn't about postcards. Matera is carved from limestone, a maze of worn steps and narrow corridors that already stood in for ancient Jerusalem in another era-defining film. You don't have to fake texture in a place like this. Weather stings your face. Stone eats sound. Dust sits on your tongue. Every detail demands you meet it honestly. That's the point. When a story carries centuries of weight, you don't pad it with comfort. You strip it down and let the bones show. What none of them fully expected, though, was the way reality would break through performance. The set moved with discipline. Marks were hit. Lights were set. But when the scene reached its peak, something else arrived. Something that made even hardened crew members blink hard and look at the ground. And that was only the beginning. The decision to uproot from comfortable Texas stages and rebuild the final day in Matera was a gamble. Convenience would have said, fake it, save time, control everything. The team chose the opposite. Tight streets meant hauling gear by hand. Cold winds meant breath fogging in the frame. Long nights meant patience stretched thin. Yet all of that pressure had a purpose. If the world on screen feels lived in, the story lands closer to the skin. And when the story is this one, closeness is everything. Jonathan Roumie stepped into that closeness with a quiet intensity. No theatrics between takes, no jokes to diffuse the strain. Just focus, breath, and a willingness to carry the scene's weight longer than comfort would allow. Around him, the cast leaned in, eyes rimmed with tears, hands shaking. Not because anyone shouted for more emotion, but because the moment refused to stay pretend. You could see it on the faces of people who never show up in the press photos. The grips, the camera team, the folks on ladders and carts who keep the world turning. They didn't have notes. They had a lump in the throat. Why did it hit that hard? Part of it is simple. The series has always refused to keep Jesus at a museum distance. It let him be warm, hungry, playful, and tired. It let friendships breathe. It built a human thread long before the hammer fell. So when the story finally rounds the corner into betrayal and beam, you're not watching a symbol. You're watching someone you've come to know. And that makes the cost land like a weight you can't shrug off. But there's another reason the air felt heavy, and it started with a promise. From the top, the creative mandate was clear. Honor the cost without hiding behind spectacle. No leaning on graphic shock to force a reaction. No shortcuts that flatten the meaning. Let the truth be felt in the pauses, in the eyes, in the breath it takes to speak forgiveness when it would be easier to rage. That restraint sounds simple until you try it. Restraint demands precision. It demands trust that the audience will lean in when you don't wave your arms. It demands courage to let silence carry the freight. Matera made that possible. The city resists polish. It won't let you pretend. Stone stairs force slower movement. Narrow passages trap the echo of footsteps. Wind steals words and makes you earn them. When you put actors into that pressure and ask them to live there for weeks, something happens. Performance softens. Presence grows. The camera stops hunting for tricks and starts listening to faces. And the crew, people who have seen 100 most intense days, felt it too. Some stepped away for a minute, found a wall, and breathed. Others worked through tears with steady hands, because the work never stops, even when your voice shakes. No one wrote those reactions. No one planned them into a shot list. They came the way weather comes, sudden, real, and not asking permission. What came next wasn't a victory lap. It was a reckoning. When you pursue authenticity that hard, the world pushes back. Schedules bite, bodies ache, voices crack at 3 in the morning. The production kept going not because it was easy, but because the mission felt bigger than comfort. And that mission had to survive more than weather. It had to survive noise. When a story finds a global audience, side narratives start circling. Some viewers wanted cleaner edges, less risk, fewer surprises. Others demanded the opposite. And then there were the online storms, the moments when a behind-the-scenes glimpse or a distribution hiccup became the headline. It's the cost of making something at scale. People debate your process while you're still in the trenches making the next scene. The team answered when it made sense, stayed quiet when it didn't, and kept the core promise intact. Tell the story with honesty. Keep the humanity in view. Let the work speak. That focus is why this particular sequence carries so much charge. The series had already spent seasons letting you sit around campfires, laugh at small jokes, and watch friendships form. By the time the hill rises into view, you aren't an observer. You're invested. Every cut to a friend's face hurts. Every line spoken from wood to sky lands with a kind of gravity that dialogue coaches can't manufacture. It's the difference between witnessing a legend and losing someone you know. Here's the quiet shocker. The less the camera shouts, the louder the meaning becomes. You don't need gallons of stage blood to feel the cost. You need a steady lens and a commitment to honesty. You need a city that looks older than your words and actors who refuse to hide when the moment demands truth. That's what Matera gave them. That's what the long nights bought. Not spectacle, substance. If you've ever felt numb to overblown content, you know why this matters. Real cuts deeper than loud. And the final stretch of filming proved it again. Because after the hardest nights, something unexpected followed. Not burnout, not cynicism, gratitude. And a question no one could shake. What do you do with a love that pays a price like that? The crew talked about it quietly on vans back to the hotel. Cast members sat in stillness, longer than usual. You don't just switch off after carrying a scene like this. You set it down carefully. You let your heart catch up with your body. Then you check in on each other, because telling heavy truth is a team sport. For viewers, the question shifts. What does it mean for us, the ones watching in living rooms and on phones, while notifications keep tapping our shoulders? We live in a time that promises shortcut after shortcut, faster answers, easier meaning, constant noise. And yet, under all of that, most people are starving for what feels real. That's why this production chose the hard road. It wasn't a stunt. It was a statement. Authenticity takes time. It takes risk. It takes a willingness to be misunderstood by people who only see the headlines. Here's the part that stays with me. When the cameras finally cut, the silence on that hill didn't feel empty. It felt full, like the space after a difficult truth finally lands. No cheers, no victory speech, just a shared sense that they had walked as close to the line as craft allows and told the story without flinching. That's rare, and it's why the finish scene is going to hit like a bell you can feel in your ribs. We're almost at the end, but one final turn matters. It isn't about production. It isn't about controversy. It's about you, about how a story like this might pull you out of the scroll and into something that lasts longer than the next notification. When you finally watch this sequence, don't race past it. Sit with it. Let the small details do their work. The scraped wood, the chapped lips, the uneven breaths between words. Notice how the camera doesn't panic. How the faces you've come to trust don't look away. How Matera's stone refuses to soften anything. Let the scene find the part of you that still believes sacrifice means something. And if it unsettles you, let it. Discomfort is not the enemy here. Numbness is. I'll leave you with a challenge. Take one thing from this story and carry it into your week. Maybe it's courage to tell the whole truth in a hard conversation. Maybe it's patience with someone who keeps testing yours. Maybe it's just choosing what is real over what is easy for 1 hour. Stories matter most when they move our feet, not just our feelings. If this resonated with you, help it reach the people who need it. Tap like, hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me the moment that hit you hardest and why. I read as many as I can, and your perspective shapes where we go from here. The cameras did stop in Matera. The voices went home. The stone kept its secrets. But the echo of that silence, that full, heavy quiet, didn't stay on the hill. It's here now, asking what we're going to do with it. Maybe the real power of this scene isn't what happens on screen. Maybe it's the way it dares us to live a little truer when the credits end.